I'm going to be covering two maze generators in this tutorial. One is called Maze Any Mesh and the other one's called Maze Maker. Let's jump right in. All right, now the first thing you're going to do is Shift A. Let's drop in a grid. I've got my grid set to 20. This is going to be a lot of subdivisions and could slow your PC down. So maybe start out with 10, which is the basic, but I'm going to be at 30. Now, once you've got that add-on installed, you have to be in edit mode. So let's select face. If you don't know how to do that, go up here and go to edit and select face mode. And now you're going to press F3. You're going to type in maze. If you see other things, all you need to look for is maze mesh selection. Right click and then add it to favorites. I've already got it in my Q menu. So when you press Q, you can maze any selection. What does that mean? It literally means any selection. So what we can do is we can select this little cross area right here and we're going to maze that selection. And you're going to be like, whoa, that's really cool. I've got this maze down. Like I've already got a maze. It's just that easy. Now you're going to see a few things in here like a random seed value and then braiding. And you're like, hey, what is braiding? Well, let's just click the extensions platform button here in the edit preferences. Let's scroll on down and then we can see braiding is this is cool. A slider defines whether the maze has dead ends. The higher the value of the braiding, the less dead ends and the more loops or alternative paths in the maze. So you have some information there to go to, which is pretty cool. So if we bring this value up high, then we won't have a bunch of dead ends. It just opens up the maze in, as far as you can see. So down here, you'll have a few other things like the extrude. I just immediately like to be able to do some things. So it's very simple. You have an offset width. This may come in looking kind of like, let's see, kind of like that. It may look a little weird. Just adjust the width value. And what that's going to do is kind of make your maze look a lot better. It's going to square it up for you. And if you hover over the offset, it's going to be what the distance of the width measures is the width offset from new edges to the original. So in other words, it's going to clean up your maze if it looks weird. Now this is also using a bevel width parameter here for offset width, depth, and percentage. You can change how this looks as well, and it will give you a number of variations. Then you have a clamp overlap. You have a loop slide, just like you would, obviously, for a bevel. Then there's a relative offset, and like we were just playing with the extrude, and there's an offset thickness as well. Now, there's an even offset here and an outset. The outset is going to almost do like a back face culling, if you will, so that's pretty neat. And then you end up with these edges selected, which would be really cool because now I can offer up a nice little bevel on top of that and make my maze look really cool. Now this looks nice because now you don't have all those hard edges. And don't forget about the secret operator, and you can press, oh, it's not coming up. Let me just Control Z back. Let's see. Let's do this. I'm going to go ahead and run this operator again. If you click off of that operator by accident and don't do a bevel like I did, you can just press F9 and magically bring it back up. Make a final adjustment. It'll be selected again, and then you can Control B bevel. And I don't really like those other edges being selected down there, so you can change your selection how you wish, not to add extra geometry. And this might even call for a shade auto smooth to kind of make that look a little nicer. I'm sure you guys can come up with some very interesting ways to make mazes. This is literally just one of God knows how many. I'm actually really curious to see what this does with a UV sphere. So let's jump in. I'm going to select, oh goodness, I think I'm just going to select the whole thing. Let's just butcher it and see what happens. That is fantastic. I didn't really expect it to work that nice. I like it. So now we've used it on a couple of meshes. This one's a little bit more complex, if you will. That's very, very cool. I like that a lot. It's kind of limited, but at the same time, it's a good add-on. There's nothing wrong with this, and it's free within Blender. And now you've got something that you necessarily would not have been able to model very quickly, and this will take a nice material. You can do some good material work with that. So let's go ahead and delete that and jump into the next add-on. This one is my favorite. This is by SKDsam on Blender Market, and this one is called Maze Maker. He's gone a extra mile or two in creating this, and if we go over to add-ons, you'll see he has a recursion limit. He has maze info, and the recursion limit is going to just allow you, like if you put this up to 5,000 instead of set to 1,000, then it's going to allow you to make much larger meshes. And it's got some cool information in here. Go through it and figure out everything that you need to know that you don't know. Now what it's going to do is you're going to be able to type in maze, and I have cap lock on. That's awesome. So we have maze. It's going to create a folder, and it's going to drop in the maze into it. If you don't have merge objects on, it's going to be a bunch of objects. Let's go from top to bottom. You can do a custom setup here. This is going to be set, I believe, to 15 and 15 by default, but I've been playing around with it. So if I come in here and want to use a cylinder for my maze, I'm just going to go ahead and hide that. I go blah, blah, blah. I like all this stuff, and it's going to make a really cool maze and separate all the objects and make a path, and it's going to have a pathway going in and out. So it's a lot more advanced than any of the other free ones out there. So now if we don't use that and we just go ahead and click maze, it's not going to let us do it actually, because it's say, hey, you've already got a maze collection named that. So you have to name this something else. We can call this maze 2. And I click generate. There we go. So that'll work like that. I'm just going to delete all of these. Now, if we don't have the merge off, we go ahead and click generate. Then we get this set up. Very cool, very nice. It comes with the floor, it comes with walls, and I have add rooms on, so it's going to add a bunch of rooms if it can, and it's just going to be random, basically dependent on, you know, how big the maze is and some other factors. So that's cool, but let's go ahead and change a couple things here. I want to make this a little bigger, so I'm going to go 30 by 20. I want just one entrance and one exit, no rooms, and my single wall ratio, I want to bring that up so maybe there'll be more isolated walls that are not connected, and I'm merging objects, so that'll work nice. The height is fine. The floor thickness 0.76. I don't really need to change any of that. The path thickness, don't need to change that. You can if you want, but that's something you can change afterwards. So I'm going to generate, and I've still got that same folder, but let's go ahead and generate. It'll stay blue until it's done, the button. And there we go. So let's take a look at this. And it looks like I've got one way in and one way out, just like I wanted. And it may or may not be perfect results every time, because what's going to happen is it's going to try to do what you want according to these settings, and then it's slightly random. So here's an isolated wall right here. Here's another one, a bunch of isolated walls, not touching anything. Very cool. Now this can, here's a couple of interesting tips for you. This pathway right here, this is a curve, and you're going to have a bevel setting. So you can actually bring this to 0. You can throw a camera on here and then have the camera follow the path and be animated, and that's actually what it's designed to do. So you can do that, and I'm going to show you how to do that right now. Now I'm going to take this path and I'm just going to / and bring it out. I do want this all the way to 0 on the bevel. I don't want any geometry on it. And I regenerated the maze, so it may look a little bit different. I'm just going to go ahead and drop in a camera. I'm going to hit Alt-R, and I'm going to knock the rotation off of that, because those do come in slightly rotated and we don't need it. Go to constraints. I'm going to grab the constraint. I want the follow path. And once I've got that, I can either select the maze here, or I can grab the teardropper and select the maze pathway there. So now from here, I do want to hit follow curve, and I want to hit animate path. And once I've done that, I should now be able to hit play and have it go through the maze. And it will stop and then go flying out of the maze, so we can stop it from doing that actually. I'll hit play, and you'll see that we are actually following our pathway out, and then it flies away around frame 100, right about 101. So I can just leave this to frame 100, And now our maze won't go flying out. I can just hit play. And there we go. So now our camera is actually following the pathway. Very simple. And one thing I do want to do is I want to shift left arrow and bring this back. Now this may be a little bit of a chore before you actually figure out how this works. But let's go ahead and try to rotate this so it's facing the right way. If I go ahead and hit R and Y, which looks pretty good, and like 90, so that didn't work, it's upside down. So what I can do is hit -90 and hit enter. And you may have to adjust the forward axis until you kind of get what you want. But let's scrub through the timeline and look at that now. That actually looks pretty good. It's a little fast, but you can slow that down in post-processing. Let's go ahead and grab all this and /out. Let's grab up our camera view and let's scrub through our maze a little bit. Very cool. Very, very cool. Oh, and just for the fun of it here, it looks like our maze path is down just a little bit. So let's do that. And you can adjust it. And there you go. Now you're actually animated going through the maze. Very cool, very fun. This is on Blender Market. I'll put a link in the comments. You guys could pick this up. Like I said, you could just do a lot more with add-ons. And drop in the comments if you guys do pick this up, different things you've used it for, and have a great and wonderful time blending. See y'all in the next one.